Hi guys, this is Mr. Urrego, and today we're going to add and subtract fractions. The first thing that we need to understand is that when we add in or subtracting fractions, they need to be like fractions. Those are fractions that have the same denominator. So that's the first thing. And when they're like fractions, I'm able to add or subtract. These are examples of like fractions. They have the same denominator, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. So when they have the same denominator, I'm able to add or subtract. Okay, let's do a couple of examples. First one, I got 1 over 6 plus 4 over 6. All right, these are the steps. Do they have like fractions? Yes, they do. 6 and 6. And what about the second problem? 8 and 8. We'll get to the second in a minute. What do? Add or subtract the numerators. Once I see that my denominators are the same, then what's going to happen is I'm going to keep the same denominator. All right? I'm going to keep the same denominator and I'm going to add or subtract the numerators. 1 plus 4 is 5. Once I have that, I want to see if, well, rather than the sum or difference, this is what I just did. And I want to know if this is the simplest form, meaning can I simplify 5 over 6? Not, I can't. So this is my final answer. All right, let's go with the next one. Again, same denominator? Yes, they do. Keep it. I don't do anything with denominators when I'm adding or subtracting. I keep the same denominator. And then I add or subtract the numerators. In this case, 6 minus 3, which is 3. I want to know if I can reduce 3 over 8. 3 is the 8 divided by 3. No, I can't. No, that's it. 3 over 8 is my final answer. All right, so the idea is to have the same denominator, always. And those are called like fractions. What about when they're unlike fractions? So unlike fractions are when fractions that have different denominators. And here's an example. I got 2/3 plus 5 over 6. Different denominators. Now what do we have to do? I have to make the denominators equal. These are my steps. Find a common multiple that will go into both denominators. Multiply the numerator and denominator by the same number, so denominator is the same as the common multiple. And whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. That's the main idea. So let me bring those two fractions over here, 2/3. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to do the multiples of my denominators. Multiples. Okay, what is that? I'm going to multiply each denominator by 3 times 1 is 3, times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, times 4 is 12, 3 times 5 is 15, and so on and so forth. These are multiples of 3. I got to do the same thing with the other denominator. 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 2 is 12, times 3 is 18, times 4 is 24, and so on. If we notice, I have the same denominator, right? So this is my common denominator. This is what I'm looking for. I want to see a number that is the same for both denominators. Okay, so that means I got to turn these two fractions with denominators that have a 6. Okay, so what do I do to the 3? Is not times 2 anymore. What do I do to a 3 to get a 6? I multiply by 2. But again, whatever I do on the bottom, I have to do on the top. So times 2 on the bottom, times 2 on the top. What about the second fraction? I don't have to do anything because the 6 is the 6. So technically times 1 on the bottom and times 1 on the top, which is basically the same fraction. The top is going to give me 2 times 2 is 4. And 2/3 became 4 over 6. And the second fraction stays the same, 5 over 6. Now I'm ready to add or subtract, right? Because they have the same denominator. So let me just bring those two numbers here on the side. 4 over 6 plus 5 over 6. Same denominators. What do? Okay, I keep the same denominator, right? The 6 is the same denominator, and I add my numerators. Well, 4 plus 5 is 9. Okay, can I reduce 9 over 6? Remember, let me see, divided by 2, no, divided by 3, oh yes, I can divide by 3 here, and divided by 3 as well at the bottom. So 9 divided by 3 gives me 3, 6 divided by 3 gives me 2. So my reduced and final answer will be 3 over 2. 9 over 6 is not wrong. but 3 over 2 is a better answer because you reduced that already. Okay, so that's our goal. All right, let's practice. 3/8 plus 1 over 4. All right, 3/8, 1 over 4. I need to have the same denominator. If you notice, the 8 is bigger than the 4. Okay, so let me start with the 4. 4 times 1 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 3 is 12, right? Times 4 is 16, times 5 is 20. All right, a couple multiples. Let's go with the second denominator. 8 times 1 is 8. Should I keep going? Do I need to keep going? Do I need to go 8 times 2 is 16, times 3 is 24? Not really, because I'm doing the least common denominator. Least common denominator is my common denominator that is the least, the smallest number out of all of them. Okay, if you see here, I have 8, 16, 24. In the 4s, I got 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. My next number will be 24. Look at this, 24 and 24. It's the same common denominator. Is that the least? L means least. Is that the smallest out of all of them? No, the 8 is the least common denominator. All right? So my common denominator in this case will be 8. Now what? Okay, so that means these two fractions need to have 8 as a denominator, right? Okay, do I need to do anything to my first fraction to turn the 8 into an 8? Not really, so I bring the same fraction. What about the second fraction? I got 1 over 4. I need to turn that into something over 8. To turn this 4 into an 8, I got to multiply times 2. If I multiply times 2 on the bottom, multiply times 2 on the top. 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 2 is 8. And now I have the same denominator. Once I have the same denominator, you keep the denominator and you add the numerators. 3 plus 2 is 5. And that will be my final answer. Next one, 2/5 and 1/10. 2/5, 1/10. Multiples of 5. 5 times 1 is 5, times 2 is 10, times 3 is 15, times 4 is 20. Let me stop there. The 10. 10 times 1 is 10, 10 times 2 is 20. But hold on. I have a common denominator already. Technically, I have two common denominators, the 10 and the 20. Which one is the least common denominator? The 10. So 10 is my least common denominator. Therefore, the same idea. Let's put underneath. So I'm going to have a 10 as my common denominator. This is my original fractions. This is my new fractions. I need to turn this 5 into a 10. By what number do I need to multiply? That's right, by 2. If I multiply by 2 on the bottom, I got to multiply by 2 on the top. 2 times 5 gives me 10. 2 times 2 gives me 4. And now 2/5 became 4 over 10. Minus. Do I need to do anything to this 10 to become a 10? No. Or if you want, you can say times 1, right? Which is 10 times 1 is 10. And then you got to do the same thing. I'm sorry, it's the other way. Oh, I'm pointing the wrong way. This 10, I got to turn it into this 10. There we go. Times 1 times 1. And then the 1 has to be multiplied times 1 again. But 1 times 1 is 1, so that doesn't change. The only one that changed was the 2/5. Now that I have the same denominator, I keep my denominator. And I subtract my numerators. 4 minus 1 is 3. Try to reduce. Right now, division by 3 is not final answer. So this is the process. You need to have the same denominator. Now let's do 1. Let's do the first one at least. Okay? This now, they have different denominators. 3 and 4. Okay, I got 2/3 and I got 1/4. Easy. Let's get the common multiples. Times 1 is 3, times 2 is 6, times 3 is 9, times 4 is 12. Okay, let's stop there for now. Let's go with the 4. times 1 is 4, times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12. Here we go. I got my common multiple, my common denominator. Least common denominator is 12. All right, 2/3. By one number, do I need to multiply 3 to get 12? By 4. So times 4 times 4. So 4 times 2 gives me 8. 4 times 3 gives me 12. What about the fourth? By one number do I multiply to get 12? 4 times 1 times 2 times 3. I multiply times 3. Therefore, I can multiply times 3 times 3. So my 2 over 3 became 8 over 12. Plus 1 over 4 becomes 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. Same denominator. Now what? Keep it. Add the numerators. 8 plus 3 is? Can I simplify? No. Final answer. So it's the same idea, but this is a little bit more tricky, okay? Because now I have different numbers and not as simple as the previous one, okay? As the one that we had just to multiply times 2 and times 2, and that was easy. It is a little more confusing. But again, easy process. 3/5, 1/3. Multiples. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 4 is 20. And let's stop there for a second. Let's do the 3. Remember, I'm looking for a common multiple. Common denominator, I'm sorry. 3 times 1 is 3. Times 2 is 6. Times 3 is 9. And nothing yet, right? Times 4 is 12. Times 5 is 15. 15. There we go. I found my least common multiple. Least common denominator. Least common denominator, which is my 15. Same idea. By one number did I multiply the 5 to get 15. I multiply times 3 to get 15. Therefore, times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 gives me 9. 3 times 5 gives me 15. Minus. By one number did I multiply the 3 to get to 15. 3 times 5 gave me 15. Multiply times 5. The bottom. The top. 1 times 5 is 5. 3 times 5 is 15. Same denominator. That's the whole trick about fractions. Same denominator. Keep it and do whatever you have to do on the top. If it's an addition, you add. If it's subtraction, you subtract. 9 minus 5 is 4. Once you have this, check if you can simplify this. This is an even number. This is 15, which is 3 times 5. None of them can be simplified. That's your final answer. Now that we went through the process, I want to make sure that you show you something. Look at the 12. How did I get a 12? 4 times 3 is 12. So when you're confused getting all this process, just multiply these two denominators. 3 times 4 is 12. Easy. And that will be your common denominator. What about the 15? Look at this. 5 times 3, 15. So if 15 is my common denominator, then you know that you have to flip this. The 5, you got to multiply times 3, and the 3 times 5. This is an easy shortcut. Just multiply the two denominators, and that will give you your least common denominator instead of doing all this process. I'll just show you so you understand where is this coming from. Okay? All right, guys, that's all about fractions, adding and subtracting fractions, nothing else. Please practice. You have to practice. Okay? Again, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications bell so you can get more videos about us, guys. All right? Again, thank you for watching. Please hit the subscribe button. It's right next to you. Take care, guys. Till the next one. Bye.